Hello, everybody. I was just getting off a podcast. Thank you guys so much for being here with us. We get more time together. How's everybody doing? Tell me in the chat. How are you feeling today? How are you feeling today? What's a word to describe it? Let's see. On a scale of 1 to 10, upbeat, amazing. You love my shirt. Thank you. Stressed. I get that too. God, I wish that we had a bunch of extra time because I'm reading such an amazing book. How many of you, type a 1 in the chat, do you know this book, Women, Food, and God by Janine Roth? Oh my God, it's so good. I just posted, I've just been like underlining the whole book. It's so good. It's literally like changing my life. I just can't get over all of the words in this book. Highly recommend. I posted a bunch of it on my Instagram. Just looking to see. Elise, say hi if you're here. There you are.
Hi, Kathy. I'm here.
Hi. Do you know this book, by the way?
Honestly, that book changed my life when I was in my early 20s, an emotional eater all my teens. And then that book like rewired my brain so that I was no longer looking to food for emotional support. It was incredible.
Okay, so it's amazing. And I am not an emotional eater, but every time she talks about eating, I just substitute whatever my thing is. And my thing, it's not even one thing. Like I'm not necessarily addicted to sugar or my phone or TV, any of those things, but I have like my stuff that I do to avoid feeling feelings or whatever. And so I'm like obsessed with this book. Oh my God. And I wish I could I wish I could literally just like read you one sentence and then we can move on with today. Just because it's all so good. Well, here's a line. Here's a line. Whatever it offers, the reality of your day-to-day life has to be better than the self-inflicted misery you are creating through the stories you are telling yourself. I mean, that's a line.
Yeah, I remember reading that book, and the biggest thing was it helped me reframe, and it sounds so basic, but reframe food as being sustenance and fuel for the body. It was not emotional comfort. That was the light bulb moment, because I was so used to being a student, cramming for exams, being stressed, buying a bag of candy to eat while I studied as comfort, or, you know, having an emotional experience, feeling low and making cookies and eating the cookies.
Sure.
And that book changed me to think, what if I just ate when my stomach was hungry, like just physically growling? And that was it. And then I slowly lost like 20 or 30 pounds for the next couple of years.
And really for me, like I said, this book is really about whatever it is that we do to avoid feeling what we actually feel. So the last thing I'm going to say to you, just because it's really present for me today, she says, imagine not being frightened by any feeling. Imagine knowing that nothing will destroy you, that you are beyond any feeling, any state, bigger than. That there is no reason to use any kind of escape because any drug, anything would pale in comparison to knowing who you are, to what you can understand, live, be, just by being with what presents itself to you in the form of feelings you have when you get home. So it's like, it's just this incredible process of awakening. And I love this idea that like no escape or high or anything can be as good as being present in the moment, in having integrity, being integrated with your life, with yourself. It's just so big. It's so good. I'm every line. Anyways, so love this book. Woke up with it this morning after about an hour of meditation and enjoying it. So now moving into today. So we're talking with my very good friend, Elise, who's such a deep, incredibly awake soul who's been on her own journey for a while. And she's been on the podcast before, and we recently had a conversation very openly about our own growth and mental health on Instagram Live. We talked. And so today I thought that we would talk a little bit tactically and also conceptually. Who's excited for that? Some tactical stuff and some conceptual stuff. Okay, great. So we're going to talk about Instagram is the thing that Elise teaches, but she teaches it not only in a tactical, very practical, step-by-step way, but also in a way that it doesn't just grow your following, but it really helps you create a business. Like, how do you actually sell? How do you actually take that following and turn that into something that's real? And that's not vanity, that's actual. And so that's where we're going to take the journey today. How does that sound for you, Elise?
That sounds great.
Great.
I'm excited.
Okay, so let's begin with some of the basics about you. Like, how did you wind up being the person who teaches people how to excel at Instagram? How did you find your way to what started working that made you feel like this was your wheelhouse?
On one hand, I fell into it. And on the other hand, it was exactly what my path was leading me to. And I fell into it because I was working a day job. You know, I was a social media marketer in 2010. It was fairly new then. I was just running Facebook and Twitter account for the business that I worked for. And I was in the space where I worked around other entrepreneurs. And so they came to see me as that social media person and came to me when they needed marketing assistance and social media assistance for their company. And this was in 2013, I signed my first client just as a client on the side of my day job. And then word spread. And 9 months later, I was able to quit my job because I had 4 or 5 clients, and that was enough to keep
That's
me
my
full-time.
girl. Okay.
Quit my day job. That was the goal. I wanted to work from Bali. I wanted to go to the treehouse
And you are.
work there. Yeah.
She's been all over the world. She's currently in MX. She's been
That's
everywhere.
Right. Yep. Working
In
remotely.
fact, the whole time I've known you, you're always on Zoom from another
It's true.
country.
Yes, we were in Europe in the summer, and right now we're currently in a city called San Miguel de Allende in Mexico. Small digital nomad city. It's very beautiful. So that was my goal initially, was to be location independent. And then a couple years into it, I kind of wanted financial independence because my income was more or less the same and I was spending it on travel. And so in 2016, I decided, okay, I'll grow my personal Instagram account as proof to clients that I can do this for them. And I used all my travel and my stories and all that great stuff. And I ended up getting a following of people who didn't want my agency services. They wanted to know how I was traveling and how I was growing on Instagram. So that started a whole second business, the Elise Darma brand, which up until that point, I was not the face of the business. I was hiding behind it. I just wanted the freedom to not have to, model in pictures. And, but I realized, like, as I created a personal brand, as I started teaching webinars, trying to figure out like what my audience wanted, they resonated with me as a person showing up way more than my agency brand. And so that's just what has taken my business to 6 figures initially. After I launched the personal brand and created an online course. And then a couple of years later, we were able to hit 7 figures in revenue in one business year as well. So it's just escalated from there. And that's why I say I fell into it. It was all because someone asked me to help out with their business one day. But then when I look back on it, I studied media, I studied screenwriting, I studied film and TV, like everything that I was always interested in. I thought I would create commercials. I thought I'd be a broadcast journalist. I literally do different elements of all those jobs in my business today. So it's a really cool, it's just the ultimate satisfaction. I don't know how else to describe it.
It's so fantastic. I love that you said, I'm going to give myself a little assignment to see if I can show clients how I could do this for myself. And then, insofar as you did that, sure enough, people wanted more of you and less of your agency services. And then that's where you found the door into so much expansion, 7 figures, and really like continuing to really figure out what success really can look like and feel like. And it's just so neat to have seen you do it both as a service provider and then for yourself and then as a teacher, and it's just built from there. So let's talk about what this is the $1,000,000 question. This is the question that everybody has, probably more than they think they have. how do people grow an audience? And how do we understand the difference between an audience and an actual client, right? They're
Mm-hmm.
different. So let's start there.
Yeah. Well, I've been an Instagram marketer since 2013. I have seen how much the platform has changed, and it was the wild, wild west back then. It really was a platform for teenagers. A large part of my job was influencer marketing and sending free clothes to teens all over the world and getting them to post pictures. And that's how we grew to 100,000 followers in 6 months. 2021, the landscape is vastly different. Instagram is owned by Facebook. And when we look at the updates that come out from Facebook, I don't see a whole lot happening on the Facebook platform other than groups being pushed and promoted more. Most of the updates are happening on the Instagram platform. And now it's not really a tool to share your photographs. It is like a multimedia relationship building tool. And especially over the last 2 years, it's gone more and more towards being a video-based tool. That's what we're seeing working the most on Instagram. So even though it's really a different landscape and growing, it's still not impossible to grow. And I think that as much as it might be harder to gain followers in 2021, it's easier today than ever to make sales from Instagram. And majority of our top students in case studies have made 5 figures at least from Instagram, typically with less than 1,000 followers. So I don't ever use my account as an example because I don't want you to think that you need 100,000 followers to make sales. Our best students have had 500, 600, 700, 800 followers before they've made sales. The good news is when you're a newer account, when you're growing to your first 1K, your engagement is at your highest. Like majority of your followers are going to see your content. As you continue to grow, unfortunately, because of the way the algorithm works, your reach goes down. So even though I have 100,000 followers, if I were to show you my insights, here's a little secret, a small percentage of my followers actually see my content. When I look at story views, it's maybe 3,000 people, 3,000 people out of 100,000 people. It's not a great percentage. I would say that my feed posts and my reels are what actually gets seen the most by my followers and by new people. So keep that in mind when you're creating something and you feel like, oh, it's only got 500 people reached. Well, that could still be majority of your followers, right? And even look at your story views. If at least half your followers are seeing your stories, 50% is really, really good. And the other good news is when you have a smaller following, you have more time and more ability to have a personal connection with most of those people. Like it's not beyond people to look at their story viewers and actually direct message and say hey to every one of those people who saw their stories, right? Because they're silently watching your content. It's not creepy, it's not spammy to look at who saw your story and then just genuinely reach out to them and be like, hey, I'm Samantha. I saw that you watched my story about XYZ. I just wanted to see if you had any questions about that topic. Like you can genuinely help people and really take the time to make that one-to-one connection because that's where sales happen, especially in the DMs. So we could talk about like profile strategies, getting your profile started, growth strategies, but truly where your time should be spent beyond making content is those relationships that you can create by reaching out or continue on by having conversations in direct messages.
Yes. And this is so perfect because this week in Made to Do This, we were talking about making offers where we reach out to people who we think would be interested in something that we're doing and we connect with them. And so I want to get there and I want to talk about that. But before we get there, I love what you teach in the 4 seasons. And I want you to address those 4 seasons. And then I want to go into a couple of the tactics so that we can understand what this playing field is and we can get to where is the moment to make the sale and the offer and how do we understand where those 4 seasons are and how to navigate that.
Okay. Love it. So the story seasons method is something I developed for your Instagram story strategy. And I love the helpful comments as well. People are explaining what stories are. But you can also apply this method to your content as a whole, the customer journey that someone goes on when they land on your profile. This is the journey they go on to become a new person, to becoming a customer. So just like the weather has 4 seasons, your business also has seasons that it goes through. Unlike the weather, the seasons are not equal in length. They vary in length. So the very first season that we all start in, and majority of us are in this season all the time, it's a season of visibility. So that's when you're looking at your profile and you think, I need followers. I need new people to land on my profile. That's a season of visibility. And this is a pretty long season. It's one that we're all mostly in. And if you're ever in doubt about what your business needs the most right now, AKA the season you're in, it would be visibility. Okay. So when you want followers, you're in a season of visibility. Then you reach a point where you're like, oh, I have enough followers. There's 1,000 people here. You know, if you're familiar with the concept, 1,000 true fans, 1,000 people are there. That's enough to make $100,000 in theory. So maybe you have 1,000 followers and you're thinking, okay, what do they want from me? And this is what I did when I grew in 2016. I had 30,000 people and I'm like, what do they want? They don't want my agency services. So then you're in a season of engagement. You don't need more followers. You need to actually talk to your current followers and understand what they want from you, right? You need to know why they're following. What do they find intriguing about you? You need to have those conversations. You could literally DM people, get on calls with them. You're kind of in a research phase to understand why they're there, basically. And this is kind of a shorter, more research-based phase. Once you're clear on your followers, why they're there, then it's time to see who is a potential lead in your business. So this is the third season, a season of lead generation. And as you're following along, you can kind of see this is the customer journey, right? They find out about you, they engage with you a little bit, and then they need to raise their hand and say, I'm kind of interested in what you're offering. So how do people become leads? Well, typically they'll sign up for a freebie, an opt-in, they'll join your mailing list, they'll book a call with you. This is taking the relationship to the next level because they're not just engaging with you in a, I don't know, surface level way. They're giving you private information of theirs. They're spending time with you. They are becoming a lead in your business. After that, the last season, when someone becomes a lead, the next step is for them to become a sale. It's for them to buy the thing that you have, which is a solution to the problem they have that keeps them up at night. That problem is what's engaged them in the first place because you've intrigued them. They're like, oh, she or he, they have something that would help me fix this thing that keeps me up at night. And then when they see the solution is in your paid offer or product, that's when it becomes a no-brainer for them to buy the thing. So those are the seasons: visibility, engagement, lead generation, and sales. So if you would like, Kathy, we could talk about different aspects of.
Isn't that so good, you guys? It's so good. And you'll start to feel a sense of relief and a feeling of integration when you start to see that all roads lead to the same ocean, and that what Elise just described is very, very, very similar at its core to what we teach you in this program, where you are going to do a little bit of putting yourself out. You are going to then gather some information, and then you're going to throw something out and see who maybe raises their hand. And then you're going to make a sale. And so we're going to now go into that further. But this is how we build a business, is that it's that 2 steps forward, 2 steps back. It's putting things out. It's listening. It's understanding when we throw a ball, who's catching it. It's that back and forth between us and the person who ultimately lets us know that they're who we're serving. And we start to really get the grooves here. And then things really start to get on track. So Elise, let's go through a couple of the first couple moves we make in each of those 4 seasons.
Okay, perfect. So if majority of people here are laying the groundwork for their business, then I would say focus on that season of visibility. Yes, you can 100% start an Instagram profile today, even before you have your business complete, even before you know what your business idea is. If you know the general audience, the general niche of people that you want to attract through your business and your future offering, you can definitely start an Instagram account around that niche, around that industry. And then you're just going to focus on being in a season of visibility. Like I said, that's generally what we're all in most of the time. So if you're in a season of visibility, start your Instagram profile if you haven't yet. And there's some tactics I usually focus on in stories, but for today's chat, I think what we need to focus on is the best way to get new eyeballs to your profile today with Instagram in 2021. And that is Reels. They are 15-second, even up to 30-second short form video clips. So that might freak you out, the thought of being on camera, the thought of putting yourself out there on video. Not gonna lie, I'm an introvert. I'm a wallflower. I'd rather write. I'd rather be behind the scenes than be on camera. I think it's very, very natural if you're feeling aversion to that. To get started, just to practice, I would say start with Instagram stories, just jumping on camera, introducing yourself. Even if you feel like you have no followers, just practice, post it. The stories disappear after 24 hours. So it's not permanent content. And, you know, I won't go on to this topic for very long, but like you can go on my YouTube channel and scroll to my very first video. It's not great. It's not what I would post today, but the point is that I started at some point knowing that I would get better with time and experience. So start with stories if you've never been on video. Then once that starts to feel a bit more comfortable, I want you to think about creating 15-second videos. 15-second videos, they're posted as reels if you have the feature. I know some people are still getting it. I don't know why Instagram's taking so long. But if you have reels, it's the best, fastest way to get eyeballs onto your profile because that's what you ultimately want in a season of visibility. I just spoke with one person who has 200,000 followers and she was actually losing followers until she jumped on Reels. Reels was a way for her to show up in a different way, show her personality, her sense of humor. And in 1 week, one of her Reels went viral. She got 10,000 new followers in 1 week. So it's talking to business owners from my mastermind. I hear that they're still scared of Reels. They still feel like it's a teen dominated thing or they're going to jump on Reels and be made fun of. It's really not like that on Instagram. It can be quite simple. The easiest type of reel that you can make today is what I call a talking head tip. So 15 to 30 seconds is your time limit. You can even script this out if you'd like, but for showing up in this kind of reel, the very first line I want you to say is a hook. So we're cutting to the point. It's like 3 reasons why your diet is failing you today, or whatever niche you're in, right? Or this is why your kids don't listen to you. See how there's like a little bit of curiosity and they have to keep listening to find out, and you're also touching on their pain point that they have. That's the secret to creating a good hook in 1 sentence. So that's the most important line that you're going to write because it's the first one that you're going to open up with your talking head tip. So 3 reasons why, or the secret why, or, those are a few starters that you can think of. Then you're going to go right into your tip. Reason number 1, da, da, da. Reason number 2, da, da, da. Reason number 3, da, da, da. Okay. 1 sentence each if you can. And then if you have time at the end, like you haven't filled up your full 15 to 30 seconds, create a call to action for them to do something after you've given the tip. So it could be as simple as like share this video with other moms who need to hear this, or DM me for a 4th tip. That could be a really great way to get that DM conversation going. So I don't always have time for a call to action in my videos, but if you do, especially as a newer account, I would really build it in. It could also even be something as simple as follow for more parenting tips, or whatever your niche is. Okay, so that is what I would focus on with the visibility. Make a reel, talking head tip. The tip opens up with a hook, then share your tips, and then a call to action if you can fit it in.
And I just want to say two things. One is, I know that it can be daunting and scary to think about making reels when you don't already even feel that you have a handle on or a plan for just like the basic feed. Like, what is it that I put out there? What is my brand about? What is my mission here? So, we're going to go back just a second and talk about that. This is also the second thing I want to say is this is why in Made to Do This, instead of talking about starting by scaling your following, we're going right to make an offer to one human, DM a human, email a human, make your first $5, $25, $100, $5,000. Because people seem to think, and Elise said it before, that in order to build a business, you need 10,000 followers minimum, 50,000, 100,000. No, you don't. No, you don't. And all of the things around social media, which can get people to completely procrastinate on what actually is going to move their business because they're obsessing about social media, that is all going to really help you scale an existing business. So get that. Really take a deep breath and you can release some of this pressure. Now, given that we are playing with things here, we are having a creative process here. So Elise said 7 or 8 minutes ago, even if you don't know what business you're starting, you could still try to create some visibility. And it's scary, right? Because you're like, I'm going to create visibility around the fact that I'm making hair items and products, headbands. But what if I switched later to something else? Okay, well, that's called being a person. And that's what we've all done. And if you scrolled back on Jenna Kutcher's feed, you would see that a while ago, not that long ago, she was taking pictures of weddings. And that's what she posted about. And then she started to be talking about body positivity. And then she talked about women about starting businesses and starting podcasts and changes and changes and changes and changes. And Gary Vee started selling wine in his father's liquor store, and it changed and it changed and it changed. So please give yourself the grace to be like every human who ever started anything, number one. Number two, and this is, I'm gonna throw it back to Elise. If we are starting and we're scared to jump into a reel, or we literally are like, I first need to even put up an Instagram account and I want to get my bearings around beginning to figure out what I would put in these boxes. Jasmine Star, I know, has like her 5x5 where she's like, what are the 5 things that would be a composite of who you are? What do you say to people about beginning that visibility journey and having some sense of what those brand ideas would be, what the concepts would be that they would keep going back to so that they have some rhyme and reason to the question of what the heck do I post today?
Mm-hmm. Well, you brought up so many great points. The fact that we've all evolved, my account used to be a travel account and working remotely, and now it's all business and Instagram. It's so natural. And that's also the power in having a personal brand because it can evolve with you. And so when you're looking at your account, I want you to think of it as you're the host of a really cool community hangout spot for the people that you want to attract in your niche. Okay. So it's not necessarily about you as much as you can call it like the Elise Darma account or enter your own name as well. But the content is going to be designed so that it's a really fun community hangout spot, meaning it's not just about you, it's about your community around the niche, around the industry that you're thinking of having your business in. That's how I would start an account. That way you can evolve the content as you as a person evolve, and you're creating content that is highly valuable for people in your niche that you're trying to attract, hence the community hangout. So I hope that makes sense. I would brand it as a personal brand so you can evolve. And then your content is really what is your ideal customer, ideal follower going to be the most interested in. And that's the concept that Kathy mentioned, where it's you have the 5 interests. And it's brilliant I've seen Jenna's method. It's brilliant because, Instagram is 3 rows of content, right? And this was when the profile was really important. The profile, it's less important, the profile view. But if you choose 5 different themes, 5 different visual or content themes, if you rotate between them one right after next, no 2 themes will ever be next to each other or on top of each other. So really cool method. The other way I would think about it is if you are a community hangout for people in your niche, and I want you to think about your future customers, your future followers, and how amazing they are because you're creating content for them today. I want you to think of your community hangout as like a magazine cover, a brand, right? You've created a magazine for your community. If you're in the pet niche, you're not just going to talk about, I don't know, you're not just going to share pictures of dogs, right? You are going to share tips on diet and food for dogs, grooming tips for dogs, maybe dogs who are available for adoption, maybe heartwarming foster care stories, medical tips for dogs. I don't know. I just came up with 5 different branches. So if dogs is printed in the middle of my hand, I just came up with 5 different branches off of this concept that relate to dogs, but they're still really important, right? Or more than that, they're what my target person cares the most about. So when it comes to your content, I do like the idea of you having themes, but write your industry, your main industry in the middle of your piece of paper. And then I want you to come up with branches off of that as if you were a magazine. And what would be other angles, other topics that you can cover around that one industry? Just play around with it. It's nothing set in stone. I always change my content buckets depending on what resonates. For example, I just started publishing about being copied, having some of my work
Oh
copied,
my God,
and
I
it
saw the
just
whole thing.
it lit a fire. And so I just created another reel. Instead of perpetuating the drama, I instead shared tips of how I can protect my content, and I shared that with my audience. And now it's my most watched reel. So things happen, but start with like your first initial themes, and then don't be afraid to experiment. And when you see something like take off, try it, continue content along that path.
Yes, 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 yes. We, by the way, just so you know, this is a bonus masterclass with Elise, which is fantastic. But we will be covering this. We will be talking for a whole week about Instagram in side of Made to Do This, and we will be able to apply things that I've learned from Elise. I quote her all the time when I talk about Instagram, and other things as well. So you will have even more time to sit with this and practice this and implement it as well. Okay, so we're moving into the next stage, which is engagement, right? So we go from
Mhm.
invisibility to engagement. So what
Yeah.
are a couple of our best moves there?
All right. So visibility, you're showing up on stories, you're posting your content to your feed. Hopefully you're making reels. The next thing is encouraging your people to engage, right? Because you don't want your content to just be posted and fly off into an abyss. So engagement could be many things on Instagram. The classic way to get people to engage is to ask them to like or comment on your post, but the algorithm has changed, and it's anecdotal, so we don't know if it's true or not for sure, but there's evidence that the algorithm actually prefers it when your followers are either saving your content. So there's a little flag button like right on top of your caption. There's a flag button where people can save it for future reference. And then there's a little paper airplane icon button. And that's for them to share it. That's for them to share it in a DM or share it to their stories. So again, this is the concept of the community hangout where you're making content that's not necessarily about you, but it's free value for your community. I define value in 3 ways. It could be information, so straight up tips, which is often what I do. Inspiration, right? So where you're illustrating the after, the transformation, what they could have. And then the third way you can give value is entertainment. Entertainment is proven, especially by TikTok, to be high value to people. So where was I going? Okay. So when you're creating content, it's less about you, even though you are the host of the community, right? It's more about content that people will save or share. So I want you to think about that when you're creating content to get engagement. So some of my best performing posts, I actually just published a YouTube video on my channel where I cover my 2021 strategy, and I looked at my best performing posts from 2020. The top performing posts were quote cards. They didn't have my face on it. They were just like info packed quote cards of straight up tips, straight up ideas that I gave my audience. Those got the greatest reach, straight up information, because people were saving them for future reference. And I literally say this in the caption: save this for future reference the next time you need XYZ. And then they were sharing it because they found it so helpful. So quote cards, like info packed cards, did really well. And then carousel posts did really well too. So again, those are like quote cards just spread out over multiple posts. Again, people were saving them and sharing them. And then after that, I can't recall, but those were our top best performing pieces of content. So they take a little bit more work to create. Canva is my best friend. If you haven't tried out Canva, amazing graphic design tool. It makes it easy for us all. They take a little bit more time to create, but the good news is that Instagram is no longer, a platform that you need to feed constantly with content. Instead of trying to post 5 times a week, how about you post 3 times a week, but make sure each post is really good, like really high value, shareable, savable type of content. So this is how you can increase your engagement. It really comes down to the type of content and the information you're sharing through your content.
And I love when you talked about really fun, simple calls to action. Like one time when you were here, you said to give somebody a very easy way to engage, you might post something and then say, comment with a red cherry if you agree with this. And that's such an easy thing and a fun thing for people to want to do versus if you were to post something and then say, tell me all the things that you think about what I just said. That's like a harder question to answer.
Yeah.
It's not a quick, easy thing. And it's not as much fun as finding that emoji. Can you give us some of those ideas and give us some guidelines as to what are the best practices to get people to engage in a fun, quick way?
Yeah, great segue to the next season, which is lead generation. And what Kathy's referring to is the fact that a lot of call to actions are big, open-ended questions that require a lot of mental energy from your audience to answer.
Right.
Like, here are 10 random facts about me. What are 10 random facts about you? That's a lot of work, just as an example. So when you're looking for engagement, you want to keep the ask relatively simple and easy for your audience. And so what Kathy mentioned is actually a lead generation tactic that I love to use. So this is the next season where this particular post, I shared one tip of mine that was from my YouTube video, right? So my YouTube video had, let's say, 5 tips. I shared one tip in my Instagram content. Then in the caption, I said, comment 3 red apples below. And I like literally, punched in the apples. Comment 3 red apples below for the link to this entire video with all the tips. So that was it. The post blew up with like super easy for people to comment the emoji. They found it fun. I did this in like July of last year. I still get comments and DMs with the 3 red apples. And the reason why this is a lead is because they're literally putting their hand up and saying, yeah, you can DM me the link. Like, that's lead generation when it comes to Instagram. When you make it super simple for them to say, yeah, send me that link. It could be through a comment on a post. It could be through a poll that you use in your stickers, in your Instagram stories. It could be through a quiz in your Instagram stories. It could just be a simple comment on a post, doesn't have to be an emoji. But when you give them a simple task to take and you've already teased them and you're like, hey, if you want the full thing, I'll send you the link, just comment XYZ below. That's them giving you permission to reach out to them in the DMs. And that is a lead, depending on what you're offering them. So, eventually I'm sure you'll be able to offer freebies and lead magnets, as we call them in the online business space, which you can count to the number how many people. But when you're in this season of engagement and research, you're really just sussing out their general interest in your idea, whatever it might be. And so to be able to get permission to DM them and have that conversation, like privately, offline, that's really, really important, especially for the lead generation season. So I
Yes.
hope that was
And
clear.
it is clear. And I want to just ask another question about it, because you had said before that in the engagement, it's really important to do that research. And when you go to the lead generation, you're asking, do you want to raise your hand, basically, and type in these emojis because you want more of this. Like,
Yeah.
let's say you were in the vegan meal prepping business and you post a photo of these awesome cookies. You could say in the caption, comment with 3 cookie emojis if you want me to DM you the full recipe, right?
Yep.
So that would be helping those leads sort of step forward. What comes before that, which you also just were talking about at the same time, is utilizing engagement as a tool to suss out what they want. So I do this all the time. I'll be sitting in my mind considering, am I going to teach a podcast course, or I'm going to teach a course on launching a course? Because I do both of those things well. And I'll say, of course, I'm going to ask them. Like, I'm going to take my own advice, and I'll go in my stories and I'll say, I was considering these 2 things. Which one do you want more? And then boom, people vote on it. And I right away get a response. Can you talk a little bit more about how we can understand how to do the research to figure out what our customer wants from us using Instagram stories as well as the Instagram feed? How do we do that? What are some ways that we can ask those kinds of questions and get the answers that we need? Because that data is everything.
Yeah. And I would say, as your profile is new and just starting to grow, it's all about relationship. It's all about nurturing those relationships. Every single new follower you get, when you have like 10 followers, you're going to notice when it goes from 10 to 11. It's not, and I see there's a comment here about how much this feels like MLM posts, which feels gross. But when you approach it with the right intent, and you reach out to someone who just followed and you're just saying, hey, thanks for following, how did you find me? That's genuine. You're not selling anything, you're not being pushy, you're not using any salesy tactics. You're literally just saying, hey, right? And this is why it's called social media, because it's a way to be social with people, especially in a time where we can barely see our family and friends in person, right? So we have these tools to create this social dynamic between us and new people. And just because they're new and they're strangers on the internet, it doesn't mean that it's like a negative. So I want you to approach it as if you're just saying, hey, like, this person has followed you, you're just reaching out and making that connection. And that's the most important part. When you're in this research and kind of like sleuthing phase, you want to make a connection with as many followers, as many people as you can, to understand why they're there. What is it that they're gaining from being a follower of yours? What is it that they enjoy about your profile? When you're posting content, what is it that they're ultimately looking for? Did they find you because you made a reel about newborn babies crying and they're in that situation and they need help, like they need their sleep back and they need your solution? You need to have these conversations. If you can, go through the DMs. The DMs are magical because we haven't talked about this a whole lot. They're magical because you can send unlimited number of links, right? You're in your Instagram profile, you're limited to just one link. But in the DMs, you can send them links, you can send them photos, you can send them a video message, you can send them a voice note, all these ways to make that personal connection. And this is what you're going to be doing when you're in this research phase. You're going to be asking pointed questions to really understand where their head is at. And so really key for the engagement, the lead generation phase, and really, really key as you're ramping up to launch your business. As much as you can, I love to kind of create a wait list. So as you start to share like what your business is going to be, what your first offer, your first product's going to be, I love for you to actually take your followers along the journey with you. Tell them, hey, I've developed this thing and I'm going to launch it March 1st. If you want to be the first to know and get the best deal and first access, comment red emoji, Apple, and I'll put you on the list, right? You can manually follow up with them in the DMs and get their email. So keep your followers involved as you develop your business, versus the alternative way I see people do this is, they don't share the behind the scenes. And then all of a sudden, one day they just suddenly have a thing that they've launched and they're trying to sell. And it's kind of out of the blue for the followers. My best selling products have been as I've involved my followers through the development phase. I've sent out surveys. I've gone on calls with people. Just like Kathy said, should I make a podcast course or a course about courses? You ask your people and you let them know where your head is at, and then involve them in that journey. And then when you launch the product or the offer, a magical thing happens and they feel like they developed it with you. They feel more invested already because they helped determine the idea of what it is, because you built it for them. You built it for their needs and their problems.
And everything that you've ever bought in your life or enjoyed in your life, it was pre-sold before it was sold, right? Mm-hmm. So the overnight oats that you bought at the store, because they had already sampled it and gotten all these people's feedback on it before they went and ordered a shipment of 4,000 of these. And the TV show that you watched already went through the upfronts, is what they call them in pilot season. And it already went through testing, and they already changed the ending 4 times, and they replaced someone with David Schwimmer because they realized he was better for the audience. Like, everything is pre-sold. In fact, George Lucas has this incredible story where Star Wars hadn't even come out yet, and he wanted to make all the figurines for this movie, and no toy company would do it because they didn't know who the heck he was. R2-D2 meant nothing to them. Luke Skywalker meant nothing. These were just words at the time. And George Lucas was like, this is going to be a thing, and I need these toys ready for Christmas season. And every toy company said no. And then Little Kenner Toys, who had nothing going on, they said yes, under one condition, which is that they would not make one plastic figurine, but that they would pre-sell them. So they would create photos and prototypes of the picture of Darth Vader, the picture of what it would look like. That's all they would make. And what did little Timmy get in his Christmas stocking that year? A cardboard thing with an image that said, you're going to get R2-D2. You're going to get this. And oh my God, what happened was I can't talk. I'm combining Little and Kenner. Little Kenner Toys became more wealthy from that one license than all the other toy companies combined, because they decided, we need to be smart. So we're not going to go make these and then have sunk costs that don't go anywhere, but we are going to pre-sell them. And boy, did it work. And then of course they made, the thermoses and the lunchbox and all of that. But we have to understand this. We have to get in the habit, as opposed to saying it's so salesy to talk to people. No, it's the opposite. If you want to ultimately serve a person, don't be self-consumed where you're listening to your own thoughts and ideas, and you make a whole line of jewelry and you made all of it in brass and everybody wants rose gold. But if you would have just asked that question, you could have made the thing that she wanted. We have to get in the habit of surveying. And so I love asking people questions, even for the content. What are you more interested in me teaching you for free? Do you want to know more about my kids and how I'm balancing that or lack thereof? Or do you want me to tell you more about how to create an incredible environment to interview a guest for a podcast? Oh, I'd rather hear this. Fascinating. Great. I've said this to you guys before, but I was under the impression when I started this podcast that I had a lot of work to do. I was under the impression that my job, creating the show called Don't Keep Your Day Job, was to give people incredibly detailed, nuanced steps about building and scaling a business. And I was on that trajectory until I started asking people questions. And the majority of people were saying, I have no idea what I want to do yet. Like, could you just help me with that? And I was like, whoa, I'm like 15 steps ahead of that. Let me back up. And then I was dealing with, not only do I not know what I want to do, I have incredible amounts of resistance around even beginning to think that I could possibly do this if I even figured out this answer. So I was like, okay, so the show really needs to be about what's possible, helping you figure out what your thing is, and then overcoming the resistance. And then you'd like to hear, once you do it, what are the different ways that you can actually scale it? It was literally an absolute switcheroo from what I thought was required of me. And I wouldn't have known that had I not been asking and asking and asking people what they actually need. So let's say that we're at a place now, we've talked about visibility, engagement, leads, and now it's time to do the thing that scares all of us, which is to sell. How do we use Instagram to sell? You said before that the majority of your students have less than 1,000 followers and they're making 5 figures with that. That's such a fun, exciting sentence. How do we sell that way? What do we need to know?
Well, if you've followed the seasons, you've built your following, you've gotten data from them, you have a bit of a wait list, or you have emails, or you have leads waiting for your big launch. You've brought your followers along the journey with you. You've told them that you're creating something. Then the sales season, it's one of the shorter seasons, right? Because people don't follow accounts on Instagram to be sold to all the time. So sales, when you're in a season of sales, it's a shorter season. It's often a time when you are live launching. And this is something that business owners, especially newer business owners, want to avoid. They want to talk about it once, hope that that's enough, that people know about their offer or they know about their launch. But the reason why it has its own season is because when you are launching, when you are selling, you need to go all in. You need to let your followers, anyone who's seen your content, you need to let them know multiple times that you're launching, that you've just started this brand new business, whether you're in the physical product space, the coaching space, the services space, you are pre-launching, everything's going to go live April 1st. But if you want to sign up today, you get 50% off, you get the best deal. See how this is, I feel like selling gets a bad reputation, but it's all for the benefit of the person, right? They've already joined your community. They're already interested.
Exactly.
They've already engaged. You're giving them an opportunity to get the best deal, to be one of your founding members, to get direct access to you. There's a lot of value there, especially as you've built up that following and positioned yourself as an expert, as someone who has things to give of value. So it's all for the benefit of your followers to be sharing your message over and over again. Now, I say that with a caveat because you're not going to share the same message over again. Like, hey, cart's open for XYZ, cart's open, cart's open. No, you're going to find different angles to share about the fact that your cart is open, right? What is the offer? Who was it designed for? What problem does it solve? What benefits are there of the offer? Why now? Why should they make this decision today? Why you? What's the experience that you have built already to make you the best person for this job? What have prior clients said about working with you? What does your LinkedIn recommendation say? I remember when I pre-launched my first course, of course I had no testimonials because I had never created the course. There were no students, but I used myself as a case study. I said, hey, I've done this for myself. I can do it for you too. I looked at what prior clients had said. I literally looked at what people said about me on my LinkedIn profile just to show, that there is proof that I have done this before. So when you're in a season of sales, I want you to show up on Instagram. I want you to share about your offer in a post, in your stories, go live, even answer questions. You want to answer their objections. People are going to be thinking, well, I don't have enough time. If I don't have the money, can I really do this? Why me? These are all the questions that we all have every time we're about to make a big investment, right? I'm sure many of you went through that process when you signed up for Made to Do This. Think about all those questions that you had, those doubts, those worries, and how Kathy helped answer those. That same process you'll do in that season of launching, of selling, when it comes time to get your business out there and your first offer out there.
And let me just say this just to give everybody just like a feeling of like a soothing balm, like an ointment goes over your heart right now, which is they're going to buy it anyway. They'll buy it from someone else. Like, really, I want you to get this. This is what the data shows, okay? Not everyone in the world wants you or what you have. That's a for sure. We got that. But whatever you are, whatever you give, whatever you do have, if they are in the market for that, if they're looking for a sewing teacher, if they're looking to buy those silkscreen t-shirts that say bliss or bless this mess, or if they're looking for a person to teach them Instagram, if they're looking for it, if they are your person, they're buying it from someone else. So if you don't have it to offer, you're doing them a disservice, especially if you have any tiny little inkling that you care a whole lot and that it's possible that if they go somewhere else, they might not get the part of it where you're really invested and really empathetic and really want them to have this awesome experience. They will buy it from somewhere else. And what I learned the harder way, or I guess we all learn it in one way or another this way, but when I started the podcast, right away, people were like, I really like your energy. I really like you. Could you coach me? Can you coach me? I was like, I don't do this. I don't do this. I don't do this. I was music business. I had a music course. I had a music career. I had writing songs. I had my kids. And no, 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 no. And a year goes by. No, 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 no. And I'm like the nicest person. I just like talk on the podcast for free. I give away content on Instagram. And every single day I was rejecting people. It wasn't thousands a day, but there was like 4 to 7 people a day in the beginning. I would love if you could, like, I don't do that. I don't charge you anything. You don't have to pay me anything. I'm really nice. And it's like, oh, I went off and bought this DIY course of videos that did nothing for me. And I'm like, oh, well, awesome. Cause they're horrible. They charged you and I would never do. It was like so messed up. And finally, it was like, Kath, they're going elsewhere. Help them get off your butt and like do this thing. You know how to do it. You've done it so many times. And so I began that process. And there were many other courses that came before Made to Do This. There was lots of, trying to fit the thing into the right size keyhole. But I'm so grateful that I went through that messy process. And I'm so grateful I gave myself that grace so that I could actually get over myself. When Daniel Pink was on my show, he said, it is a moral obligation. It is selfish to not sell the thing that you know how to do. It is not okay. God did not give you the ability to understand color for you to keep it to yourself. You weren't given this ability to make this piece of software to save somebody time to keep it to yourself. You weren't given your empathy where you can really help people hear themselves to keep it to yourself. Whatever your thing is, it's not for you. It's for you to give away. And the only way that people will actually show up and receive it is if they invest in it. Otherwise, they won't pay attention to it. It won't matter to them. They won't show up for the thing. They won't value the thing. They won't do anything to interact with the thing. And so we have to give them an ability to have a transformation, to actually move into action, to actually care about the up level that this thing is going to provide them with. And therefore they need some sunk costs. I'm doing a juice cleanse right now for the second time in like a month. If I didn't pay $250 for this 4-day juice cleanse, there's no way I'd be drinking it today. I'd be so over this thing, but there's sunk costs. It's like, well, each of these juices, I know what this costs me. I'm not going to just throw it down the sink. So thank you, Raw Juice, for making me pay for this because you know me and you know I actually wouldn't complete this unless I did. Okay. So we really need to keep playing with this. We have a lot of scarcity mindset and you think of yourself and you're like, I wouldn't buy that from so-and-so. I wouldn't buy that from so-and-so. Okay. But you've bought a lot of things from a lot of other so-and-sos and your people are going to say that about you. Oh, I'm so glad she showed up. That was such a lovely thing. I loved making that transaction. It made me feel so good about myself. Oh, I was so excited about this thing or that thing. Okay. So I want to be able to spend a little time hearing your questions for Elise. As we're rounding out these 4 seasons, is there anything else that you feel that you want to share, Elise, that we didn't get to touch on before we take some questions?
Yeah, there's so many tactics we can go into to help you generate content ideas, to help you create content. I have a lot of tutorials on my YouTube channel if you want to check it out. But the comments are interesting to see the feelings that are coming up about sales. And, I know we're not there right now, right? You don't have to show up and be selling, but I can relate. The first time I pitched was in a Facebook live stream in 2017. My voice was shaking. You could see it on my Facebook page if you want to go dig and find it. I was so scared and I was pre-selling an idea. And I saw while I was live the first sale come through on my phone, and I felt physically ill. You know, I felt sick. Like, oh, I have to deliver now. I've just talked this big game, and now I have to deliver. And the thing is, I'm so glad I pushed through those feelings, because a part of me wondered, should I just refund and like call this off? But I pushed through those feelings because they were my own things to deal with. It was my own relationship with money and the fact that someone was paying me in advance for something that I could give them of value. I've had to push through and work through those feelings, because ultimately I did go on to create that course, and it's since helped lots of students make at least $1 million in tracked revenue from Instagram. All the things we talk about, all the things we teach, my students will report back to me and say, hey, Elise, I just booked a $5,000 client from Instagram. I did that. We track it in a spreadsheet. Our students have booked in at least $1 million in revenue from Instagram. If I had never made that course, if I had never put those teachings out there, I would have been holding my audience back from being able to get those results for themselves. So that's how my relationship with sales and selling has changed, where I no longer feel ill because it's really not about me. It's about me putting out there what I know, my teachings, my trainings that have worked for me, sharing it with others so that they can bring in those results and those benefits to their lives in their business. So right now you're playing the long game. We're like setting the foundations. I don't want this conversation to overwhelm you, but just know if you have these negative feelings, it's not necessarily a sign to stop. It's not necessarily a sign to like, oh, I got to get out of this. Sometimes you have to push through your own negative feelings and work through it, because on the other side, you could be offering something that could change someone's life. I know it sounds cheesy, but
I think
it's
about
just
the
the truth.
days when I think about the days when I had to literally cold call, like on a telephone, and I was calling ad agencies and wanting to hang up because I was like, I'm such a burden. I'm such a burden. I'm asking for work, right? I'm calling a producer or creative director to find out what the heck campaign they're working on. They're not expecting my call. I'm a songwriter. What am I doing? And I just wanted to hang up. And I used to say to myself, hell no. Is this the best I got? This fear? I'm going to let this stand in the way of what could be my entire future on the other side because I'm uncomfortable. So I'll be uncomfortable. I've been uncomfortable most of my life in so many worse situations. And so I would stay on that call and I would actually sometimes say it out loud. Hi, they pick up, hey, this is Peter. Yeah, you're called Deutsch. I'd be like, hi, Peter. I'm so scared right now. My heart is beating out of my chest. My name is Kathy. I'm a songwriter. I wanted to know what you guys are working on. Oh my God, I'm so scared. Thank you for being so nice to me. I write music for ads. Is there any way that I can help? And they'd be like, you don't have to be scared. It's all good. And I'd be like, okay, you guys, you're so nice. What are you guys working on right now? Is there anything that I could write for you? What do you really need? And oh, we're not working on anything. Oh, I feel like such a moron. And I got better and better at this until I was like, well, if you could wave a magic wand, what songs do you often need? What are you working on? What is the brand? What is the brand's message right now? Oh, we're doing Dr. Pepper and it's all about women empowerment. Oh, okay. I'm going to come back to you. All right, Kathy, it was really nice to talk to you. And I would get off the phone and I'd be like, yes, I'd be like so proud of myself for making that call. And then I look back and I'm like, those calls, which were, I'm talking like 50 of those a week, 50 of those scary calls a week, led me to making $350,000 a year consistently for a decade, which led me to teach other artists how to make money with music, which they couldn't believe they could do, which led me to make $1.5 million teaching a class my first year, which led me to $3 million teaching that class, which led me to then have the ability to start a podcast, which then led me to have the ability now to start helping hundreds of thousands of people start side hustles they never would have started, all because I sat on a phone and said, like, hold it, stick with it. So you're uncomfortable, show up anyway. And I look back and I used to say to myself, worst case, let's say I don't get the sale, they hang up on me. I will survive it. I will survive that rejection. What I won't survive is staying within a limitation that this is something I can't do, that I have a story about myself, that I have a story about the world. I will not survive that. I will not survive that. And I instead, I learned how to be resilient. Some people were rude. So what? Learn to not take anything personally. And then the coolest thing happened, which is I started to make relationships with people, and I realized I was actually a high point in their day. They were like, you were just so nice and cool that I didn't even know if we would have a project for you, but you were present on the phone. There was something about you that was refreshing. And then we built a relationship. And everything, you guys, comes down to access. It's like if you were best friends with Warren Buffett, that's good access, right? If you were best friends with certain person, everything's access. So when you realize that it's all like noise, and really it's about creating relationships with the people that you want to have relationships with, whatever then's supposed to flow from it, if it's business, if it's friendship, if it's ideas exchanged, awesome. And then you take away this pressure of like, my job right now is to convince someone of something. No, it's not. Your job is to be a cool human right now and ask a question and listen and have no agenda and just absorb and learn and not take things personally and be in beginner's mind. And then what happens is you become like a redwood tree forest. You're taller, you're strong. You can help other people now because you learn what life is really about. My friend said to me the other day, don't spoil your kids because they need to grow up and see that they got to learn to be uncomfortable and messy and take risks and all these things. And it's like we're telling ourselves this narrative all the time that like we can't take risks, we can't handle certain things. Yes, we can handle it. And yes, we can take risks. And that's where all the magic lies. So, like I said, let this uncomfortable Kathy Heller, she's so nasty. She's making me make offers this week. I have to like tell someone it's $5. Like, yeah, I'll take it. I'm going to be your tough love because there's no reason why me, the girl who didn't wear her retainer, who wasn't the knockout, standout high school anything, wasn't the student council president, wasn't the homecoming queen, why I should be making $11 million a year. No way. That's dumb. That doesn't even make sense, but it does make sense. It makes sense in a world where it's about feelings and taking risks and being messy and having empathy and having fun and being up for growth. Then it does make sense. And we can all do that. I assure you that you guys can run circles around me with your talents and your skills and your grammar. You can run circles around me. So let's do it. So I'm going to start asking Elise a few of these questions before we hop off. One of the questions is, it's come up a few times, business account or personal IG account. You said before something about personal brand. Some people's business is not a personal brand. What do you recommend?
Okay, so I think what this question is referring to is you choose the setting for your profile, and there's actually three. You could be a personal brand, a business account, or a creator account. So oftentimes I will tell my students, just start with a personal account. And then as you start to get traction and you need business tools, meaning if you switch to a business or a creator account, you get insights, you get data analytics on your followers, then do it. If you know you're running a business, I would just start off, as a business or a creator account. The caveat with the business account is you might lose music for reels or stories. So if that happens to you, move to being a creator account. You can switch between these settings very easily in the back end. So there's that part. But then the second part is referring to building a personal brand and growing a business, correct? And what the balance is?
Yeah.
So personal brand, meaning your username, your business name. If you're offering like coaching services, even products, you could make it named after you initially. And that way, if you evolve, if you change your niche, your industry, you don't have to start a new account. You just evolve your account with your growth. But again, it comes back to that concept of you are the leader of this community hangout. So they are going to see you in stories. You're the person behind the content. You're the person behind, the feed. But the content in the feed isn't necessarily going to be about you. It's going to be content that's relevant to your community.
Okay.
I hope that makes sense.
Yeah. I want to just address, because some people are saying, there's this whole conversation. This creates a lot of anxiety. I just want to say one quick thing about feelings and big feelings. Okay. God, there's so many things we're not taught in school. But the reason I mentioned this book I was reading before, and the reason I'm actually starting another mindfulness training actually tonight with John Kabat-Zinn for about 8 weeks, is because listen, we are not the feelings. We are the thing holding the feelings. Okay. So I just want to say for a second, picture it like there's a pond and then all the fish feel all the different things. There's an angry fish, a happy fish, a scared fish, an anxious fish, but you're not any of those fish. You're the pond. And we have to learn to just be witness to it rather than being like, oh my God, I'm this, I'm this, I'm this. It's like you are partly that, but really not actually at all, right? You're like this pond and there's all these fish swimming around and you can just notice it and just find it fascinating because it's come to teach you something. If you're feeling anxious right now, oh, there's a teacher in that. There's a teacher in that feeling. It's coming to show you something that's bothering you that you haven't looked at yet. And it might be sense of self-doubt, shame, unworthiness. It might be this feeling of being a fraud. It might be this feeling of something about this person you didn't like. It's there for a reason, right? It's come to teach you a thing. I shared with you guys that I cried for 25 minutes, an hour before I interviewed Rachel Hollis the other day. And I never cry before I interview anybody. It had nothing to do with her. It was me. Something about her was triggering me. And so I told it to her and I felt so free after I told it to her. And then I had a really good time with her, but it was me. It was something about her was triggering me. And I was like, oh, there's such a lesson here. There's such a teacher in this for me. So I look at that like, oh, that's exciting. It's like ding, ding, ding. There's a breakthrough here. There's an up level, up level, up level, right? In order for the up level to occur, we're going to start to go up, right? There's stuff that starts to come up as we move through the altitude. So this is a good thing. You are starting to wake up. You're starting to wake up, and certain things are going to wake up that you didn't want to wake up and you want them to go back to sleep, but better to just be like, ooh, I got this. Let me turn toward it. What is in there? What's in there for me to learn? Okay, let's look through. I'm looking through. Elise, are you seeing anything that's standing out? We talked about the business accounts.
There were a few questions about hashtags, and
I saw that.
then there was another one about starting. I think we got the business one already.
Talk about the hashtags. Yeah.
Okay, I'll talk about the hashtags. I also saw a few times people asking, do I just start with a reel as a brand new account, or do I fill up my feed a little bit? So honestly, the reel feature is a little finicky. As a brand new account, you might not have it right away. So you might be forced to fill up your feed. I like to, for any new account, start it with 9 posts, and that gives you 3 rows of 3. So, and that the reason why you want to kind of pre-populate your brand new account is because when someone lands on your profile from a hashtag, from a reel, a story, you want to give them a sense of what they're in for, why they should follow. So I am a big fan of pre-populating your account with content. And if you have reel as a feature right away, go ahead and try a reel as one of your types of content. Just make sure that you hit the button, preview it to the feed, and then it will show up as a feed post as well. So that's one really quick question. And then hashtags. Hashtags are a visibility strategy. They are the tagging system of Instagram. There aren't many ways you can be found in search on Instagram other than your username and your name field. Those are searchable. Your bio and your captions are not searchable, but your hashtags are. So hashtags are like the SEO of Instagram. So you want to use up to 30, and I'm a big fan of using 30. Some people will say, oh, it's spammy, but no, it's a tagging system. It's not spammy. It's only spammy if you use hashtags that aren't related to your content. So when you're looking up at hashtags, it could be as simple as going on to Instagram.com on your desktop or your phone, typing in your industry, and you'll see Instagram pre-populate a list of hashtags that use that keyword. And so you might not want to use the biggest hashtag that has millions of posts associated with it, especially when you're a new account, because you're going to be drowned out by the other bigger accounts. I want you to look for smaller, more niche hashtags, but my favorite way to find them is just to go to Instagram.com, type in hashtag wellness, and you're not going to use hashtag wellness, but under that list, you're going to see related hashtags, wellness and food, wellness, health, wellness, spirituality. You're going to look to see how many posts are using those smaller hashtags. If they're in the range of 10,000 posts up to 500,000 posts, I think it would be a safe hashtag to try. So go through that exercise, find and collect up to 30. And
hang on. Elise, you can unmute. I had to mute because
no
sorry,
problem.
that was an accident.
If you like that kind of concept of finding hashtags and you find that hashtags are helping you grow, but PS, I think your content will help you grow more than your hashtags, so don't get too obsessed with them. One tool that I really like is called flick.tech. So I'll pop this into the comments. Flick.tech is basically that whole system that I described. It does a lot of that for you. It makes it really easy to pop in your industry and find related hashtags really, really quickly. So you could try that tool.
What do you think, Elise, about collaborations, like going on Instagram Live with somebody else, which shows up on your feed and somebody else's feed? Do you think that's a good strategy?
Definitely. I like collaborating because when you go live or when you, I don't know, do a account takeover with someone, you're basically getting in front of their followers and they're getting in front of yours. So when you think about doing a collaboration, you obviously don't want to invite someone who's a direct competitor, meaning they're offering something very similar to you. But think about someone who's not offering what you're offering. However, their account is the same audience that you want to get in front of. So for example, if I am a local yoga studio and I offer yoga classes, I could collaborate with the juice shop down the road because we have a similar audience, but we're not offering the same thing. So I want you to think about that in terms of your industry and your niche when you're doing collaborations.
And then as far as going live, which we talked about in the beginning, and we talked about it more specifically with Reels, but what do you think about going live when you're like, I don't know what I would say? And when you talk about being on video, is there a difference in what makes a difference live versus stories? Those are different, right? You guys understand you can go live on Instagram, which could last for like an hour, or you can go in your stories and you could be talking on video, but it's not something that's lasting an hour, first of all, and it doesn't actually have to be an Instagram live. It's called just making a video in your stories. Should you be making videos in your stories? Are they just so much better in terms of expanding your visibility and all of that? And if you don't know what you're saying, what's a good rule of thumb of how to start?
I'm a big fan of going live as if it's a weekly series or a repeating series. So if you are going to start a show, think about TV shows we grew up watching. They aired the same time, same day every week. You can treat your own live as a show. So call it Monday Magic. Every Monday, I talk about 3 magical tools you can use in your relationship. I don't know, just made it up. But I like treating that as a reoccurring show. And then the format of going live, I don't use a script, but I do pre-write the notes or the talking points that I want to share in the live. I use the exact same format that I shared for that talking head tip that I explained for making a reel. So even when you go live, it's important. The very first sentence is a hook. Because a lot of times people go live and they'll ramble a little bit. They'll be like, oh, hey, is this working? Susie, hey, Susie. If you're going to keep that live to live on your profile after you're done, it's called an IGTV. You don't want to lose people at the beginning. So open up with a hook of your live. Hey everyone, welcome to Magic Monday. Today I'm covering 3 magical ways to solve an argument with your partner. Whatever the hook is. If you have any reminders for them in that moment, that's a good time to share it. And then I just dive into the tips. And a live is a really great way for you to talk in depth about your tips, right? You're not limited to 15 or 30 seconds. You can talk about each tip for a couple minutes. I like lives to be about 10 minutes. And then end your live with a call to action. right? What they can do, what next step they can do to get more information about the topic that you just shared. And then finish your live. And then if it's a good one, you have two options. You can either delete it or save it as a video that lives on forever on your profile as an IGTV. So that would be the strategy for going live. Treat it like a reoccurring series.
And I just want to say, because I see some of this in the chat, and Jen, you're right. The reason that made to do this is like literally granular, like step by step, is because everybody thinks they want this, right? And it's amazing. Elise is incredible. She's like, I've talked to a lot of the people who are the best of the best, and she's one of them. And to me, you're the best at teaching this. It can feel overwhelming because we're saying like Instagram, real social media. Okay, it's like learning to drive a stick shift and you haven't even gotten your learner's permit for a regular car. Correct. And that's why I designed Made to Do This to be a very, very step by step and simple little granular steps so that you can win. You can win every week. You can win by the end. And what I notice is that people will be like, tell me all the things about funnels. Tell me all the things about growing my email list. Tell me all the things about subject lines, hashtags, Instagram, social media, TikTok. And then they literally feel completely overwhelmed, like it's a fire hose. They set it down. They do nothing. So this is extremely valuable. And it's a masterclass. And it is good stuff. And Elise, I think similar to me, we give a lot away for free, right? Like this could have been a whole class, right? With her time, she wants to give this to you. And if you want more, there's always more, but this is very, very valuable. What I just want to remind you is what she said at the beginning. At the end of the day, it's extra. My business, first of all, my whole music business, I didn't even have an Instagram account. I started making relationships. And by the time I was in Billboard magazine and Variety magazine, I had a whopping total of 28 clients. 28 clients out of the thousands and thousands of possible people who could work with me. And that made up my career. Okay, fine. So good to know, right? By the time my friend Jenny was on Shark Tank, where they gave her 2.5 times the money she asked for, she had yet to have an Instagram account. And she had a business that was evaluated at over $2 million. Let's just get it. What we're going to teach you and Made to Do This is how to find a way to find one human being who's representative of others and serve them and make something that you didn't realize you could make that they need. And from there, you're going to start to grow it. And if you start to take one or two things from what Elise is saying and start adding that to the tray, like when you're a cafeteria restaurant, you take, your meat and potatoes, but then you get that Jello as well, and you get that other thing. By the time you get to week 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, you're going to be ready to start adding some more of this to your plate, to your tray. And then you're going to go, oh my God, now I can see where that basic meal is going to be only like that much more supersized by adding all of this stuff. And it's important and it's going to work and it's incredible. But just know you're exactly where you need to be. And the reason I know that is because most people are focusing here before they even have the thing on their main plate. And they're worried about the ribbons and the bows and all of that. And it's like, well, what's inside the bag? Oh, nothing. Oh, that's why I wound up giving up. You're doing fantastic. Elise, this was so generous. It's so packed. Type a 1 in the chat if you found this helpful.
So
Awesome.
packed. And I know we just touched on a lot of strategies. I love the idea in the comments. Clarity comes from action. Everything we talked about, I've learned over years. You're not going to learn this overnight, but just take those initial steps to start your profile. If there's any strategy or tactic that you're like, oh, I need some more in-depth training, check out my YouTube channel. It has trainings on most things we talked about for that more in-depth thing. But the key takeaway that I hope you got from today is start that profile and treat it like a community hangout for your future customer, your future follower, and just give them value, treat them like you're human, and you'll see those sales come in.
And just have fun. We make everything so serious, and I think we need to have fun because we're always putting our happiness on some outcome. Well, once I have the 10,000 followers, then I can have fun and be happy here. It's like, no, just be in the moment. Enjoy your life. You're doing great. Most people are not even sitting here right now listening to this, let alone attempting to make something beautiful happen for someone else who might read something or appreciate something. And if you don't know what to post, by the way, one thing I love about Instagram is that as long as you give credit to somebody else, like if there's a quote that you love by Ruth Bader Ginsburg, post it and credit her, like you don't have to be Hemingway. Like you could literally be a curator of the things that you love to read. You can take things that I just said. You can take things that Brene Brown said. You can take quotes from movies that you love and you can already find them. They've already been created. You can look through other people's accounts and then tag the person who created it, tag the person who said it, and they'll actually thank you for posting their stuff and sharing it. That's what's so fun about Instagram. Like you could literally wake up every day and find somebody else's thing and tag them and share it. And there you go. Like you just were a place to just say yes and to somebody else. And it's perfect and it's great. So thank you guys for being such a great supportive group to one another. I saw so many people writing to each other and giving each other love. And that's so awesome. And we're doing this together and it's incredible. So Elise, you're the best. I would love it if you guys would take a screenshot to shout out Elise to thank her for her time today. You can post about her on Instagram. You can tag me, you can tag Elise, and I'll say thank you and I'll repost a bunch of them to give you a little bit of love on your Instagram. And I just have a question for you, which is, what is the most valuable thing you heard today? What's the most valuable thing you heard today from what we talked about? What comes up? Community of heart fans, steps for reals, seasons, make your feed a community hangout, just get started, build a community, the flick link, 4 seasons engagement, just start, pick 5 themes. Awesome. So then
Love it.
So then think about what's one little step you could take right now. Maybe go do a post or post something that you like, or even just mess around with reels. Don't even post it, but just go look at it. So it's a little less overwhelming. Okay. Thank you guys for such a great call. I really enjoyed being with you as always.
Thank you, Kathy, for having me. Thank you all for
You're the best, Elise. Thank you for your time. Amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
See you tomorrow for implementation day.
Thank you.
So welcome.
Thank you.
Elise, you've been amazing. Thank you.
Thanks, Elise. Too sweet. Thank you all.
Thanks,
Kathy.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Your energy.
Thank you.